Get ready for the next fight. What's going on YouTube? This is D-Rec here with Argo, bringing you another round of Cardfight Vanguard feature matches. In today's match, I have my buddy Chris on the left. He's going to be piloting Rezael Vita. And on the right, my buddy Andrew is going to be piloting Liael Odium. Our last round before the DZBT08 meta kicks off this weekend. Jumping right into Chris's first turn, he's going to take first in this game here today. He's going to pitch one of the crits there to ride. Oh, riding into the energy marker there. Now he's going to ride into Tranquilla for the standard ride line for Rezael Vita. And that'll be the end of his grade 1 turn there. Passing it off to Andrew. If you guys are familiar with this matchup, you should already be well aware of how Rezael can accelerate as well as Liael Odium. With Andrew going second, he's going to set the regress gauge there. It's going to be able to help him set up not only with the new support out of DZBT07, but the older stuff to get his front row boosted with the order card there that Liael uses to get an additional 5k for each marker in the regress gauge zone there. But Andrew going second gives him a little bit of a way to kind of accelerate and come back a little bit by applying some early game pressure if possible. Rezael is known for being very aggressive with either the Caterpillar build or the more dedicated Rezael-centric build. Chris is going to guard that rear guard swing there, and then Andrew's going to swing with Vanguard. No guard and no offensive trigger check from Andrew. He's going to resolve the promo grade 1 there to draw a card after pushing to Soul, and that'll be the end of Andrew's grade 1 turn. Chris pitching another crit to ride into the grade 2. And he does have the cost for the grade 1's on-ride ability to call from top, I believe, 5 or 7 from the top of the deck there. He's going to get an Aerial Sage. Very good find, especially this early on in the game. And against a deck that doesn't have a whole lot of removal, definitely a good option to be able to set up for a proper Rezael Vanguard swinging column there with the additional 15k boost. And potential countercharge depending on how aggressive Chris wants to play this game. He's going to call out a full column on the left there with the Cadwalla. He's going to swing Vanguard first. It's going to be just a vanilla 18. And he's not going to guard there. No checking on the offensive trigger check there. He does get the Anil Barris. That'll be good for later on. And then he swings the Cadwalla on rear. I believe that is just 18k. I don't believe he has the conditions met for the additional 5k from the grade 1 in the back there. And with that, he's going to resolve Cadwalla's skill. He's going to add the Dual Nation grade 2. That'll be a good way to set up later once he builds up more damage to be able to get a board back from the top 5 and be able to potentially recycle some key units later on in the game once he starts thinning out his deck a little bit there, and then refilling it with triggers with Rezael's Divine skill in the mid to late game there, depending on when he wants to use that. He could use it right away on base Rezael's turn, or he could wait until he's on a Vita to give Vita the triple drive on top of the potential to call 3 units there from the drop zone there. Going into Andrew's grade 2 turn, he's going to ride into the grade 2. It's going to allow him to draw 2 after setting 1 to the regress gauge there. He's going to set the new grade 2 there. It's going to be able to call itself out at the beginning of the battle phase if he desires to do that. He's going to move back to grade 1. He's going to call the new discard fodder. He did pitch 1 earlier for the ride, so now he has 2 Persona Shield tickets there. It's going to allow him to guard for the attacking K for each. He calls a third one. It gives him 3 10k shields in hand right off the rip before we even get to grade 3. Really solid early game setup there. Plus he's got 3 full, not full columns, but semi-full columns. He does call out another grade 1 to the right side rear guard column there. So he's got 2 full side columns and then a Vanguard swing to be able to apply some early game pressure. Good way to bounce back on a lackluster grade 2 turn from Rezael. Rezael not seeing, obviously, the Saragons to be able to build hand advantage and be able to cycle the deck a little bit. And with that, yeah, the Vanguard swing got guarded. The 10k from the front trigger is going to give those 2 columns pretty beefy numbers right away. And I believe Chris is going to take both. It's going to push him to 3. So now he's ahead 2 damage against Andrew there. 1 damage to Andrew, 3 damage Chris. Not a super bad mid-game start for Chris. getting into his grade 3 turn. That gives him some resources to push a bit more aggressively on his first grade 3 turn, especially when none of the skills do require the opponent being a grade 3 for him to be able to resolve a lot of those skills. So I believe he resolves on here, he resolves the grade 2 on ride skill, calling out the Cadwalla from the drop zone there. Now ideally, another column here. He did have that Neil Barris from the previous turn there, so if he can get that in front of a Saragon to be able to rebuild a little bit of hand advantage, that would be the most ideal situation here. If he were to potentially go for, I'm not sure if he's playing the Dual Nation card in his list currently. I know most lists in today's meta, especially with some of the deck lists that came out of BSF 2025, are running the T-Faults as well as the Savruses from DZB207. He's going to call out the Neil Barris though. And then he's going to Divine Skill with Rezael. It's going to allow him to put 3 crits back. And that's going to be live for the duration of the game until he reaches 6 damage. That's going to give Rezael the +1 drive for this turn there. So he's not going to save that for his Vita turn there. He's going to rush pretty early on. And let's see if he can get a full board going right off of this here before he goes into his battle phase. He's not going to call anything behind the Neil Barris. It's just going to be a 10k attacker at Andrew's Vanguard there. He's going to guard with the Persona Shield ticket and then resolve Neil Barris' ability to draw and then scry one. Not too terrible, but I don't believe he has anything substantial in the drop zone to be able to build that right side column back up. So he's going to call back the grade 0 and the grade 1 from the ride deck. That's just going to be a 14k column. Not super ideal for Chris in this situation, but that is more ideal. He's going to check a crit on first check there. It's going to be crit Van and power to the rear guard, and then no additional triggers on that grade 3 Vanguard swing there, applying 2 damage. No defensive checks from Andrew. Really good to see for Chris here to be able to still swing with that right side column without it being overpowered by defensive trigger checks there. It's going to be swinging in for 24. At rear guard, very interesting choice here that he wouldn't guard the swing at the Vanguard for the 15k required guard. But he does swing at rear guard there, and that's going to be that swing there. And then for his final swing this turn, he's going to swing at Vanguard. And I believe that is going to be 23 this time. I do not believe that Cadwalla gets a power boost. It does not, so that's just going to be 23 with the grade 1 getting the +5k. And he's going to guard 25, and that'll be the end of Chris's first grade 3 turn. So at the end of Chris's turn there, he's going to resolve the Cadwalla skill there. He's going to add another Cadwalla to hand. And with that, that'll be the full completion of Chris's turn there. And that'll allow Andrew to see about getting into his grade 3 turn. Hopefully he can come back a little bit, rebuild that board with more ideal targets to better manipulate the regress gauge a little bit, as well as get a full board between that empty front row slot and then the back row middle column. Riding into Liael Odium. He's going to do, I believe, the order at this point in time. Okay, yeah, so that is the order there. I thought that was the grade 2 at first, but that was the grade 2 is when it is rode, not when ridden upon. So with that, that's going to give him an additional +5k to his front row rear guards, having the 1 of the order in the regress gauge there. And with that, he's going to use the grade 2 in the gauge there to call itself out and then put something from drop into the gauge. So he's at 2. Depending on what else he's able to get, he may be able to accelerate to 4 this turn between Liael's on-attack skill and then potentially some other cards that may trigger putting something into the regress gauge there. If he has another of the grade 2, I'm not sure if that's a hard once per turn or not. It doesn't look like he's going to call. Is he going to call a rear guard behind his Vanguard there? He's not going to do that. He's going to swing rear first. I believe that is 18, 28, 33 at Chris's Vanguard there. So it's going to be a 25k guard. Chris is going to take that right off the rip. No defensive trigger check. Unideal in this situation there. Definitely wanted to see at least an initial defensive trigger check just to balance off some of the other attacks that Andrew puts out the rest of this turn there. He's going to swing Vanguard next. It's going to come in for 23. Ooh, 2 PGs and no offensive trigger check, but those PGs will be handy if Chris is able to go into a Vita turn next turn. Definitely going to be handy for Andrew to be able to defend properly against Chris's full grade 3 turn there with the Vita coming out there. That's going to be the end of Andrew's turn there, the last defensive check being a crit. Unfortunately, not at the right time for Chris, putting him at 5 damage this turn. So we're going to see just how effective Chris is going to be able to build a board back up this turn. We haven't seen him throw out any of the Saragons yet, which definitely wanted to see for Rezael to be able to rebuild hand advantage and have proper columns to accelerate the game state for him a little bit there. He is going to Persona Ride into Vita. Going to give him the 10k plus the base 5k for the ride there, having the base Rezael in the soul. He's going to get rid of the 0 there. He's going to call out the Dual Nation grade 2. So he's not playing, I don't believe he's playing T-Fault in this list. That's going to allow him to bottom deck a card from his drop zone there, and then check the top 5 for something else to call out to the board. Not a bad way to rebuild the board a little bit there, although not as powerful. I believe T-Fault does get the extra 10k there, so not as powerful as the T-Fault, but definitely handier for toolboxing a little bit in the mid to late game. And he's going to call out another one there. Not sure why he's going to do that. It's an only from, I believe, an on place from hand. Unless he didn't have any other good options. A grade 2 is better than nothing. If you didn't have any other options, that's definitely still something that you could do. Not sure. What did he counterblast for there? Was that, I think he's counterblasting for that grade 2. I don't know why he's doing that. That's an only from on place ability there. Unfortunately, I think he misplaced here a little bit by counterblasting again for the second Dual Nation grade 2. He's not supposed to in that instance there. It isn't only on place from hand. And then the grade 1 Tolpaz is going to come out from that top 5 check. And I don't believe you can actually resolve that. I know that there's the on place that says you can bottom deck something and then period, then counterblast for the cost to check top 5. I'm pretty sure those are both within the when placed from hand. So if someone wants to comment down below just to double check that there, that would be super duper handy for clarification there. I didn't see any rulings on the Cardfight wiki, so I'm not sure if that's a set in stone thing or not, but some clarity on that would be helpful. He calls out another Neil Barris from hand in front of this whole pass to be able to have a proper attacking column that turn there. So that's going to be, I believe, 28 at the Vanguard there. Now, he definitely could have swung the Cadwalla first. That would have been the smaller column there if he was only going to swing that without the boost to then resolve Rezael Vita's skill for an additional body there, plus the full column from the Neil Barris side. But he is going to get guarded with the 2 Persona Shield tickets there for 33. That's going to be 20. No boost from the Cadwalla. That's going to be intercepted by the Fodder grade 2 there on the right. And he's going to swing Vanguard next. And I believe that is 18, 28 plus the 15. That should be 43. Boost from Aerial Sage there. The Aerial Sage is going to give him the counter charge. He's going to use that counter blast to call out 2. So we're going to call out another of the grade 1 there. Called again there. Pararam. And then he's going to do with the last ability there, because he did put a grade 3 Rezael into Soul. He's going to call out another copy of base Rezael to the board there. That's going to give him 2 full columns once again. Swinging Vanguard into a PG. First check over trigger. He is playing blue OT. It's going to let him get something back from the drop zone there. He gets a PG back, and then he gets the crit, and then the 100 million somewhere else. Going to give the crit to Liael Barris. He's going to give the 100 million to the Rezael on the left there. And then drawing for the reveal. And the second check, heal trigger, double trigger check on Rezael Vita turn. That's absolutely insane. Good way to come back. You'll love to see it. So now they're almost tied up. It's 4-3 right now. But definitely a good way to come back for Chris there to be able to bump the damage down a little bit. And with Andrew at 3 in the regress gauge, there's definitely an opportunity he could be able to set 5 next turn. So healing down is definitely ideal in this situation for Chris. Now, unfortunately, he didn't see any of the Saragons between last turn and this turn, so he couldn't have built up as much of a hand as he could have had he had the Saragons. But nonetheless, healing down and then the OT, definitely good to see. And then getting the PG back off the blue OT is going to be definitely helpful for being able to survive next turn. He's going to guard the Liael Barris swing with the OT of his own. So now we both know that, or we all know rather, that both players of their OTs are out of the game. Losing my words a little bit. And then with that, he's going to swing into Vanguard with the Rezael with the 100 million power. Andrew is at 3, so the contemplation is a little unnecessary, but you know, we can definitely be a little cheeky, especially if you have the guard in hand to be able to perfect guard a 100k power Vanguard there. He's going to top deck the Persona Ride. Liael Odium there. Definitely handy. I do believe he has another of the grade 2 in the regress gauge already, so he's going to be able to call that back out going into the battle step this turn. He's going to play another of the order there. Ooh, soul charging a trigger. Not ideal in Andrew's situation here, but that does put him to 4 in the regress gauge, 2 being the order card. He's going to be able to give plus 10 to his front row rear guards this turn with those 2 orders in the bind zone. He just needs 1 more before the end of the Vanguard swing this turn to be able to pull off the divine skill for Liael Odium there to be able to take the additional turn. And he's gonna call that grade 1 there. That's gonna let him search for the order card. Forget the name of that card. A lot of the names are a little finicky. That one is Avarice Rester there. That's gonna let him, for the discard cost there, he's gonna be able to search that. He's got some power bonuses going around there. So, between the one that he played earlier, that's going to give plus 10 to his Vanguard, in addition to the Persona Ride. And then he is going to call out for a counterblast the grade 2 there to be able to get that back out. And it puts 4 back into the regress gauge there. And I believe that's now 3 Distorted Banes in the regress gauge, giving plus 15 to front row rear guards this turn. So plus 15 plus the Persona Ride, very, very big. And I believe the grade 2 gets plus 5k on its own. So that is 18, 28, 38, 53. Ooh, massive numbers. That's going to be 53,000 at the Vanguard. And all those power bonuses. No defensive trigger check from Chris. He's going to check the Liael Barris instead. That's going to be the Vanguard swing there. And Soul Blast for the triple drive. Going to bind the grade 2 there from the regress gauge. That's going to give him 5, the 5 that he needs to be able to Divine Skill his turn if he chooses to. And with that, Chris is going to Perfect Guard, discarding the Aerial Sage. Ooh, second check critical. Then give all effects to the rear guard on the right. Third check front trigger, absolutely insane. 2 trigger checks plus the 15k from the Distorted Banes, plus the Persona Ride. Absolutely insane. I'm pretty sure that puts that column well over 70k. It's a grade 1 there. I'm thinking of that right. It's going to be 16 plus the 2 powers. 36, 51, 61, and I think there's another 5 count. There should be 66. And that forces Chris to drop his entire hand just to guard that, and then that's going to be the end. I believe he discarded the grade 1 and another card there from his hand to resolve the Divine Skill. So going into Andrew's second turn off of Liael Odium's Divine Skill. He's going to go right into the battle phase. He's going to pay the Counter Blast to be able to call out the grade 2. He's going to bind the OT from the drop there. And with that, he's going to swing Vanguard first. He's going to bind from hand instead of from the field. He's going to bind the 4th copy of the Order card. It's going to give plus 20 to his front row rear guards. And the Vanguard's going to get plus 10 since the card was bound from the hand. That's going to be 23 with 2 checks. Still triple drive, but only 2 checks. No offensive checks. And he resolves the Divine Skill, checking a crit for 6th damage, putting him to 23k base power. Unfortunately, I only think he has 1 card in hand left. He's got to guard 2, potentially, I believe. They're already at plus 20. So immediately, 38 plus columns. That's going to be 41 right off the rip, and then the other one's going to be bigger by, I believe, 3k or 8k. And no heal trigger to follow it up, unfortunately for Chris, and that's going to be game. Thanks again for watching, guys. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for future content. Keep your eyes posted for the next round of Cardfight Vanguard Feature Matches. Until the next video, guys, take care.